Alright, it's time to ring this thing home. We've got a new
Finally.
list featuring 5 of the all-time most insane stories throughout our Twitter lore. From perhaps the absolute worst name to ever grace the platform, to the most unemployed drama of this whole long series. This is Twitter's Most Infamous Artists, Volume 3. This video is sponsored by
Volume
Flexi.
3.
I'm a YouTuber, so needless to say I spend a lot of my day sitting at a desk. And that would be great, but when setting up my battle station, I kinda made the classic r/mil living spaces mistake of blowing all my budget on a nice PC and totally cheaped out when it came to what I now realize is like the most important part of any setup, my desk and chair. Because of this, back pain and fatigue has been an annoyingly reoccurring roadblock when I'm working on projects. Thankfully, FlexiSpot recently reached out to me and sent over one of
desk
the
job.
E7 ergonomic chairs and the very cool E7 standing desk. Once they arrived, the setup process was surprisingly quick and easy, and it was crazy how hard they instantly mobbed my
Just fast
previous
forward a
setup.
bit.
The C7 chair is, like the desk, super premium and solid feeling, making long work days
I've already
100
seen
times more
these
comfortable. It's made
things.
with this
The
very nice
standing
frame
desk I
material
can
and has
agree
useful
with, the
ergonomic
chair
adjustments
not
to fit
so
anyone's
much.
preferences. My favorite part is definitely the dynamic lumbar support system that moves along with you, ensuring you maintain proper posture at all times, whether you're locked in while
That's
gaming or
just
leaning back to
scary.
relax. Meanwhile, the E7 standing desk can be adjusted to a huge range of heights, and adjusting is also impressively smooth and quiet. It has an insane 440-pound load capacity, which, along with the E7 solid build quality, makes it so your equipment doesn't wobble at all when moving it up and down. FlexiSpot has been an absolute game changer for my productivity. Being able to switch
I mean,
from
it
sitting to
still
standing really helps me
wobbles,
maintain
but
focus over
not
long periods of
as,
time, and my back
like,
is very happy to not be in pain after those long editing sessions.
extremely
So,
as
if
you
want to
might
upgrade your
think.
setup, there's really no better option out there. FlexiSpot has a huge range of different options, and they're all super competitively priced with frequent sales. In fact, there's a sale on the E7 desk right now. So if you're interested, click the link in the description to head over to flexispot.com and get your own premium setup going. Thanks to FlexiSpot for sponsoring. Now back to the video.
We start with a banger already.
Alright, it's finally time for this one. I think part of me has been putting this off, but I really don't think you could call this series in any way comprehensive if this guy didn't show up. Meet Shadai Prajan, best known by his Shadman alias. Shad has always been a dedicated self-taught artist, talented enough to win a scholarship for a college course in his home country of Switzerland after graduating high school. It was right after getting accepted, he'd set up his now infamous Shad-based website. Essentially acting as a digital portfolio, it cataloged all his artistic projects, like those that got him accepted into the course, but also some of his darker works. You see, he, for some reason, decided to add a NSFW section to the site, with the kind of work archived there being extreme enough to get him immediately expelled from the college.
Bruh.
I know about this from one of Shad's
Imagine going to a college and achieving your goals only to get kicked out immediately.
appearances on the new
Just for being a horny goblin.
podcast, Sleepy Cabin. I consider it my favorite podcast of all time, but this episode in particular is pretty strange to go back to. Throughout the episode, now knowing the truth, it's really cringe to see everyone dancing around this subject and not say specifically what he was drawing that was so bad.
One of them was criminal psychology, but one of them was in the Justice Department.
Oh my fucking
Then
god.
they broke the bomb and said, "We found some stuff on your website, which is highly illegal, and we cannot allow you back on the campus.
Oh, well.
Because you're a menace to society."
Yes,
exactly. You're getting
Yeah.
society.
I mean, it's deserved when you're writing. If I remember correctly, he's a very, very infamous for the fact that he's just straight up drawing the worst type of smut you can ever possibly think of.
It made me sign.
I mean, granted, it's not gonna pass the girls that and their like book slop that they make, but pretty close, pretty close.
a thing accepting that I
You're
am.
a menace.
Yes.
Sorry, you're a menace.
You are officially a menace
Yeah,
to
you are
society.
legally you're a menace.
You know, it was like they call me like this. That like I'm like a threat.
Street rat.
But
I mean, you are. You're technically speaking doing something illegal.
Street rat.
they're like telling me that proof that they're nothing but an agents of treachery themselves.
Right.
By like denying my rights to express myself in my own free time,
Yeah.
completely independent
Disconnected from what you
I do in school.
It's not, what else?
No
if
comment.
If they found like a fucking like
Straight up
head
no
of them or
comment.
something.
Yeah, that would be different.
It was lolly. And that's according to Shad himself on a later Newgrounds post when someone asked him about it. Switzerland has some law against underage persons involved in sexual activity in art. As well as that, the site hosted artwork of Goro, bestiality, non-con, pretty much anything bad you can think of.
Pause to your heart's content if you want to know what they are.
Shad did it. Anyway, after his educational ambitions fell true, Shad took a break from art, and after a short stint of mandatory military service, he would make his grand return to the
He did
internet
military?
in 2010,
That's
reviving
news
the
for me.
Shad-based website, launching his Newgrounds, YouTube, and of course, Twitter, all under
He
his
has a
now infamous
YouTube.
Shadman persona, choosing to represent himself as a skeleton guy in a Nazi outfit, befitting of his edgy, quote-unquote, envelope-pushing, not-safe-for-work, provocateur identity.
Yeah.
A nicer way of saying terminally online coomer lacking in any and all morals. He would go to great lengths
Accurate,
to hide his
actually.
identity,
Terminally
frequently
online
posting
coomer.
images of cosplayers, pretending like they were him, leading a lot of people to think he was some kind of ripped Chad, when in reality he looks like this. It was also at this
I mean,
time
if he still
moved to
keeps a good
Philadelphia,
fit,
living
are
with
you
the rest of the
surprised?
Soupy Cabin guys, and becoming a frequent collaborator on their projects, primarily stuff like
Damn, that's
background
a
art for
big
old
drawing
Only or
tablet.
Psychobubbles cartoons. With these collabs and the growing popularity of his own various platforms being enough for Shad to now make a full-time living as an internet artist. As for Shad's art itself, I really find his style a little unappealing. Even if you're looking at one of his more normal drawings, there's this weird blend of realism and cartooniness that doesn't really mix well. The poses
Realism and cartooniness? I'd say it's more, what was it? Emphasis on
are always
details, I guess? Whoa,
very
what the hell?
stilted, and I don't know, like, even in his non-sexual stuff, the way he draws people still has that lecherous vibe to it that's kind of off-putting. And makes
Lecherous
it so I have
what?
a very hard time separating the art from the artist, which you'll understand why that makes it impossible to enjoy when we get to his worst stuff later on. Despite this, though, Shad did grow a
Foreshadowing.
large and dedicated fan base around him. Maybe because of how he built a brand around himself with the Shadman character, his distinctive style, or just how prolific he was, given this was his full-time profession. It makes a bit more sense when you look at what Shad was actually putting out around this time, at the height of his popularity. It's interesting how he clearly courted two distinct audiences. His most egregiously offensive art would be hosted on his website, whereas his more public-facing accounts like Twitter, the degeneracy would be heavily toned down, and he'd post a lot of these more meme-y posts, usually drawing some kind of trendy meme, popular game character, or current online drama through his own preferred worldview. Like one of his most popular pieces, Minion would ask. This was peak humor in like 2018. This kind of meme
Okay,
stuff,
then.
along with his edgelord persona, made Shad very appealing in the internet landscape of the time. I don't know, it's weird to look back on, but like, he was kind of just treated as this inside joke for the terminally online. Like, whoa, I can't believe he just went there. I bet this one's gonna really trigger people. And then it's just him
Who
drawing
else
like
but Chad?
Hillary Clinton as a Molly or some shit. But to be clear, at this time, around the mid-2010s, Shad was extremely popular. He had close to 1 million followers on Twitter, and his
What?
YouTube videos would regularly rake in over 1 million views as well. This also led to the Shadman meme on 4chan, where people would post an image of someone walking out a door with the green text Shadman, expressing how sick they were of seeing his ugly art spammed all the time. Because of the large cult following he had, nowadays Shad has the reputation of being kind of like the Epstein of the internet.
The Gooner Files. How Shadman corrupted the entire YouTube community.
Because of how so many random and a lot of widely beloved figures are tied to him from this period, either by working directly with him or just interacting with or defending him on Twitter. I mean, we have names like practically every big Newgrounds animator ever, Elvis the Alien, Ricky Burrick, Dolan Dark, Belle Delphine,
Ricky?
Toonad, rest in peace, Hockey Dearest, Nux Taku. Well, that one's not too surprising.
I mean, that guy pretty much goes out of his way to clickbait everyone with, what was it? The standard Rule 34, something stuff. Like, I know mainly because of the thumbnails and whatnot he makes. I've never watched him, but pretty much obviously like the standard big gooner enough to basically get attention, I guess.
Chris Raygun, Scythe,
Scythe?
Idub's wife, and most famously, the ex-Mr. Beast star, Ava Chris Tyson.
Oh yeah, there was a
Really
controversy
go
about
on,
that.
but the point is, Shad was everywhere. And although the moniker is pretty funny, I personally don't think it's fair to try to implicate others for at one time commenting under one of his meme Twitter drawings, since he really was not seen as the heinous figure he is today back then. That's mostly because, like I said, he was careful to cater to different audiences, keeping the worst of his art just outside of the public's view. And most importantly, these interactions all took place years before the absolute worst of what he did. Alright,
Which-
it's time to get to that part.
I don't like the fact that the poor cat looks so tired. What are you going to show us? What are you shoving me into?
In 2016, at practically the height of his popularity, any doubts as to writer Shad was just playing a character and testing the boundaries of artistic expression, as he liked to say, or was a genuine dangerous degenerate, were put to bed through three truly disturbing pieces he would produce. All of these being art depicting real-life children. First off, in November of 2016, a fan on his Tumblr requested Shad draw art of Keemstar's daughter, pleasuring Donald Trump, to which Shad claimed he would do it if Trump won the US election. And, well, we all know how that went. So, a few days after, Shad would upload this art to his site, depicting the real-life 7-year-old on his site full of lewds of underage characters.
Ooh,
The art itself
boy.
is not technically explicit, but it's clearly, it's creepy. And he allegedly would soon after uploading this make the actual fully explicit drawing of her the user originally requested. I'll be honest, I did not go looking for that to confirm, but
Thank you so much for that. Save your sanity and mine.
to his Kiwi Farms thread, he did go through with it, although Shad himself later denies it. Either way, Keemstar would respond threatening to call the cops over the art, and it would lead to Colossal is Crazy calling into Shadman's stream to confront him over the whole thing.
What I did was say, what you did by drawing this picture, putting it in context on your website with a bunch of other pictures of little naked girls, was fucked. Especially considering it's Keemstar's daughter. He doesn't deserve that. Why target his daughter like that? And I felt that was fucked. But I'm not calling you a pedophile. You understand?
Totally understand. You understand that it was obviously part of like the controversial nature of the picture to post it under such context.
It started off as a controversial joke.
Yes.
Well, I guess I can play devil's advocate and say, why wouldn't you draw it if it's commissioned? But on the other hand, there should be a line. Like, at this point, the first one I don't think was bad, but like the fact that he's still committed to it entirely and posted it anyway is a bit too fucked. Too crift, I mean. Sorry, forgot my censorship filter. I'm dwelling deep the abyss with the Leviathans. We're not in for a good time. That much is known.
You didn't go through with it.
I would have never.
It's very interesting.
Man, why is it? Thanks for all of a sudden starting to freeze up. Like, what on earth?
But I'm not calling you a pedophile.
Yeah, totally understand. You understand that it was obviously part of like the controversial nature of the picture to post it under such context.
It started off as a controversial joke.
Yes.
You didn't go through with it.
I would have never.
It's very interesting to see his edgelord persona and a weak excuse of championing free speech completely fall apart when he's actually confronted, and he'd quickly relent and take down the art at Colossal's request.
Bruh. Okay, at this point, again, you should have just... If you're gonna be, like, actually freedom of speech, terrible as that art is, first of all, you shouldn't have done it, regardless of it. But second of all, if you're gonna commit to it, just commit to it entirely. At this point, you're just basically being pretentious. And if you basically back down, it tells a lot about the fact that you're not really doing anything. You're just using it for convenience sake and to basically dodge responsibility because it's freedom of speech. I remember when people that did stuff for our freedom of speech would literally die on the on the Griffin Cross to basically commit to the whole ordeal. Nowadays, people would say freedom of speech and then bang down immediately about it. Again, the thing he did is in fact criffed up, but if he already committed to it, he should have stayed committed to it. Criffed up as it may be, at least he is truthful to his word, but now he's pretty much done the horrible deed, and he backed down from it. Like, at this point, either fully commit and cost your own reputation, I guess, but at the exact same time show that you are in fact genuinely committed to it. Why am I... Man, I'm getting a bit too... Maybe I'm trying to avoid this topic in its entirety, because it is kind of disturbing.
Daughter in kind of like, obviously, it's not
Kind
naked,
of.
but I do
Very
feel like there are
disturbing.
sexual connotations regarding that picture. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Yes, totally agree. Colossal, I respect you like a hell of a lot. And just like man to man, if you think it would be better for me to take it down, I would take it down just out of respect
If
to
you
you.
could do that, I think that would be wonderful.
You're
You
like,
can do
I'm gonna go do that right fucking now. I'm gonna take it down out of respect to fucking Colossal.
I appreciate
He would later put the art back up when an insultingly useless
Okay, so... Oh, and then there's no point in salvaging them. First time it's going crazy, but at the very least it wasn't exactly, the not safe for work stuff. But then he doubled down and went for it. So rather than committing to it, he backed down, and now he went back on his word and re-uploaded it. At this point, as he stated, he's a criminally online gooner. Straight up. Like, that's pretty much it. What a disappointment.
any resemblance to actual persons or offense is purely coincidental label. To, as he put it, prove it's not porn. Whatever the hell that...
My guy, even if it's not a real person, you're still drawing corn. You're not... What?
means, and ends it by saying he will not draw any more of this, neither have I ever considered going through with anything actually explicit. That will not age well, as not 1 month later, he basically repeated the same thing by drawing highly suggestive artwork of the YouTuber Lieutenant Kurbis,
No,
a
I'm
commentary
not surprised at
YouTuber
all.
who became popular
Like, at this point, yeah, guy pretty much lost all points. He fumbled royally.
at the time, primarily because of their gimmick that she was making Leafy-style commentary videos while being 11 years old. Oh, but it's okay according to Shad because it's
Thank you for putting the disclaimer. Too criffed up to show any part of. Save us the sanity, I guess.
just a parody of a character inspired by the real girl, and there isn't even any nudity. In general, you can see Shad
Yeah.
obviously was getting a lot of genuine pushback over these across the internet, but he had established himself such a cult of personality, there was still almost as many who defend his right to make this kind of stuff. But I think even those people
Yeah, they're called gooners. Are you surprised? Considering there are certain VTubers that do some crazy ASMR and more stuff like that. No. Just no.
wouldn't be able to defend what took place right after this. When this atrocious arc of his finally came to a head with his third work based off of a real minor, this time being of the actress Daphne Keane who portrayed X-23 in the movie Logan. First, messages of Shad on Discord discussing the actress were leaked, showing to no one's surprise this art was not being made to push the limits of expression but because Shadai, the man, is genuinely mentally deranged.
Yeah, to
Look,
be
it's
expected.
X-23, IRL spick lolly. Honestly though, drawing X-23 from Logan isn't pedo, right? With other messages
I
showing
mean, if it's genuinely normal fan art of the character, at least, no, I don't think so. But if fascinating with the real life actress, or even worse than that, is yeah, then we're pretty much crossing the border.
he was apparently going to the theater to see the movie multiple times just for her. And then Shad would completely cross the line, producing multiple full-on explicit pieces of the actress. This time, Shad would face at least some kind of real consequences over this.
That image said
As
it all.
after the Kiwi
Guy is scarred from researching Shad, man.
Farm's owner, Noel, came across the art, he forwarded it to Daphne Keane's legal team, who would then send a cease and desist and have Shad's website taken offline, at least for a time. When he was then forced to speak on the situation, you can see how Shad attempts to twist the narrative in his favor, claiming it was not art of Daphne Keane specifically, just the character she played. But from those messages we
so
saw earlier,
X-23?
that's obviously not the case. And after these obviously abhorrent pieces by him would come to the public's attention, he would finally lose the wealth of support he previously had online, going from being seen as a quirky, edgy artist to a literal pedophile.
Yep. I mean, given the fact that he did it with the first time, are you surprised?
Despite that, amazingly, he did still maintain some of his connections, primarily a few of those from the Sleepy Cabin crew who he was IRL friends with. But even the remaining of those were evidently heavily strained by these actions, and would eventually also be burnt to the ground, along with his own life just a few years later. Okay, so in 2021, Shadman became a freaking heroin addict.
Oh,
Allegedly. This causing him to start schizo posting on Twitter and seemingly for like no reason at all, publicly attacking all the Sleepy Cabin guys, including Corey's Spaz Kid, who he was at least professionally still the closest to, completely severing their relationship. He says Corey's gotten old and lost his sense of humor. I guess because him and everyone else of the Newgrounds old guard grew past just making crude jokes, whereas Shad is still stuck being as offensive as possible, and they've all gone on to become far more successful and beloved, whilst he's ended up stagnant and maligned.
yeah, because given everything, Edge Face could be fun, but it you quite literally tire from it real fast. And there's nothing wrong with being edgy, but at the end of the day, it does nothing for anyone, for no one, that is.
Given his new hobby, Shad's artwork would slow to a crawl, and he'd instead post more incoherent rants on his Twitter, along with these insane-looking images displaying his rapidly decaying living situation. His
So he's basically gone full senile. It's kind of depressing. Like, how bad does your life have to be to go to those lengths?
room becoming more and more of a filthy crack den, till eventually there's no room at all, and he appears to be sleeping on the streets of LA. Culminating
Whoa.
with this image of him holding a rusty railway spike. Now I can't really blame people at the time for thinking this was some elaborate troll or desperate plea for attention, but those doubts were put to bed mere days after the railway spike image, when people found official government records stating Shad was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, ending up with Shad being locked up in prison. A fitting end for the worst character to ever grace this long series.
Wow, so he's actually behind bars. Crazy. I mean, with someone like that deteriorating in health, are you surprised?
Oh wait, never mind. Actually, he had his bail posted by Sleepy Cabin alumni Rice Pirate Mick. Rice Pirate was seemingly the
never
one
mind.
and only old connection to take any amount of pity on Shad at this point. From what we know, after this, Shad seemingly kicked his drug addiction and is only as insane as he was before 2021, with him making a return to Twitter in 2023, although only posting very sporadically. Because of his infrequent posting and zero savings as evidence of him going homeless and unable to post his own bail during the heroin arc, I think it's reasonable to infer
Heroin
he somehow
arc.
managed to prepare
How bad do you have to be to go on a heroin arc? Like, oh, damn.
a normal job at this point. Maybe in the animation industry, which is why he stayed in the very expensive LA. Although I imagine that too has come to an end, since right now, Shad has once again returned to actively posting art on Twitter. And he, mind-blowingly, still has a pretty sizable core audience for it. The art itself is odd nowadays. It's like almost entirely Belle Delphine art in the vague 2026. And some non-explicit meme art that also feels like it came from like a decade ago. Now,
Peter
I did not
Griffin
exactly do a
Joker.
deep dive, but it at least appears he doesn't draw lolly shit anymore. So that's somewhat of a win, I guess. I don't know, I try to
Sure.
remain charitable to people I cover in these videos, but researching this guy genuinely made me feel like so gross at points. So yeah, there isn't really a moral to this one beyond don't do drugs and don't be a pedophile, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we can kind of draw something like that out of it. Soyeon9 falsely accused.
Soyeon9 is an artist who gained a lot of popularity, primarily in the Demon Slayer fanbase, around 2023 to 2025. They're one of these people who gets really into one specific character, with like 98% of their art just being of Mitsuri. I mean, I can't judge, I do that too sometimes. But yeah, I actually really
when you
love her
vibe
art
with a
style.
character,
She has
they
this
tend to
incredibly
stick to your
confident,
head.
stripped back draftsmanship, portraying a lot with very little, with very clear, deliberate, and informative use of line weight to give a strong sense of weight, flow, and form. She's clearly someone with a lot of experience
Colors are
and
really
hard
nice.
work under her belt, Although, from what I can tell, the person behind the art seems to be relatively quiet and probably shy, as it seemed like the profile was mostly just focused on the art itself, and not full of the usual artists posting about their personal life or memes and fent posts.
Which is nothing wrong. Hey, if you want to do you, do you. Nothing wrong with just posting your work and just having it like a portfolio. What's so wrong with that?
Rather using it
Doesn't mean you
purely
have to
as
be
an
shy.
art platform and not really a social media, going as far as to have all the replies set to private. Because of that, they had never courted or had to deal with any kind of controversy, and from what follows, I think it's fair to say they're not someone who ever would deserve or would handle that kind of thing particularly well. So move on to January of 2025, and Soyeon would post this piece to her Twitter. Looks innocuous enough, another pretty cute, well-drawn piece of Mitsuri. And it was treated like that, quickly garnering over 13,000 likes.
Oof.
That was until out of nowhere, this user, Century101 appeared, posting this reply accusing Soyeon of using AI, including this:
Again, these types of people who accuse others for being AI artists is just either they are dwelling so hard that they think they're being accurate, or they just can't seem to realize people have different art styles. It's genuinely insane how most people quite literally go out of their way to just criticize them for being AI artists because they have a style. It's insane. So she literally just got dunked on for having a unique style that is something that somehow links her to AI. That is perhaps the most Clanker Lover-esque style accusation I've ever heard. What in tarnation?
a really stupid looking image justifying their call out.
Sad face for no reason. Near the neck is just not a not cut line. Long? What do you mean long? Yeah, it's an arm. Hands should look like this as opposed to this. Who said that? WTF on shadows that are, relatively speaking, fine. Bjorken, which literally, who cares? It's, the legs aren't anatomically accurate. Weak angle, which is like, again, what? These are literally just random nitpicks for the sake of being nitpicky. AI, yeah, sure. If that's AI, then I'm a millionaire. I hope I am.
Some of the reasons outlined are the hands look weird, which they barely even do, and it's not like hands are something famously difficult to draw or anything. She points
They can be annoying to draw though, so sometimes minimizing on hand drawing is, relatively speaking, fine. Who cares about details?
out she has no ribs, her ankle looks broken, and there's a weak shadow, which are clearly all stylistic choices. Then she just points to her dress and says, "Push more," which I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
The only thing I
that's
can kind
also
of
weird.
maybe understand finding odd are the few missing lines, like on her dress and skirt, but those all make sense when you realize this is a whip, with all those being cleaned up by the final image, as seen here.
Ah,
Now,
okay, yeah, that
this
makes sense.
ill-thought-out accusation post was
If
pretty
it's a whip,
silly,
it makes sense.
and was probably deserving of some mockery for attacking an innocent artist like this, when anyone can just go back on her profile and see she's been drawing in this exact style
Like you
since
should.
long before AI could produce images this convincing. But the pushback to Century ended up being far more intense than that, because after the post was made, Soyeon straight up deleted her whole account along with all the art she had put up there, since she had no other art accounts,
Bummer.
leaving after these two posts. "I will delete my account today. Over the past 3 years, I have finished drawing everything I have in mind for Kanjori Mitsuri. It was a great honor to have so many people come and see it. Please forgive me for having kept silent up until now. I hope to meet you all again as an artist. The account will be deleted at 7 p.m. After this
Depresso.
post highlighting the situation,
Give me some
went mega viral
espresso.
on our Twitter, garnering a crazy 8 million views and 166,000 likes. Pretty much the entire site was left outraged at Century. Sentry would then go on to make several apology posts over the next few days. First was a simple post saying, "I was wrong, I am so sorry, took the post down," which would obviously get community noted and brutally ratioed, with endless posts condemning her and telling her to deactivate her account. Upon someone telling them she deserves to be harassed, Sentry posts this piece in reply. "In a fight? In bed? No, I just actively hate on myself. Ha 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 ha." Their initial
Okay.
apology and self-deprecation coming off a bit hollow when a few hours later they'd say this: "I could delete everything, but that's no fun, and there's nothing stopping someone like me from making a new account and being mean all the same. Much rather keep this here as a reminder / promise / warning of what not to do." This marking a shift in their posts from remorseful to coming off a bit attention-seeking and cringe, to be honest.
I mean,
After posting
she goes out of her way to try to criticize someone for being an AI artist. If that doesn't speak attention seeker, I don't know what else would.
a random piece of art and getting their
Granted, it is nice to, have people specify that they're using AI, but on the other hand,
replies filled with the same hate over the whole situation, they'd edit a clown nose and hair onto it. Then would post this insanely long thread, basically sympathy baiting over how much hate they were getting. It is really long. Wow, okay, still going. And finally, they'd end things off with these two genuinely insane pieces of fent art over the whole thing. It's mostly just more over-the-top apologies, repeating everything we already went over. In the second one, they draw themselves literally groveling on the floor, being whipped by Mitsuri.
why
and
though?
end by saying they suddenly now realize they actually like the image that they claimed was AI slop just yesterday. To be honest, they are really cringy, but I mean, I guess it's about what you'd expect from a teenager's fent art. Oh, they're 24.
No.
Well, anyway, what really
Wait,
got
whoa,
people
whoa, hold on. What did that say?
claimed was AI slop just yesterday.
Rewind
To
a
be
bit.
honest, they are really cringy, but I mean, I guess it's about what you'd expect from a teenager's fent art. Oh, they're
By the way, sorry, Grok. The fact that you mentioned Grok unironically means they probably use it. Grok user detected.
they're 24. Well, anyway, what really got
The
people
cat with the
replying
closed
the
eyes.
most riled up was this line where they attempt to blame the reposter for the whole situation, but they are still definitely kind of to blame. Oh my
Delulu.
gosh, dude. So, after this, with Soyeon gone from Twitter and Sentry's apology tour ending, you'd expect everything to kind of end here. A crazy art drama story with a clear hero and villain, right? But no, there is one more huge plot twist we didn't mention yet.
Oh?
Buried amongst the replies attacking Sentry, there are a small handful of comments actually professing to her innocence, claiming that Soyeon did not delete their account due to Sentry's accusation, but rather was planning to deactivate anyway, and this was all just one huge unfortunate coincidence. And despite how widely accepted and repeated this story is, I actually think these people are right. First off, Soyeon in her deletion post does not mention anything about being called out or being accused of using AI, and simply says she's drawn everything she has in mind about Kanjuro Mitsuri. Although you could just assume she didn't mention it because she didn't want to play into the drama and had already resigned to leaving the site.
I don't know, man, it's Twitter. Anything could be taken as drama or avoiding drama.
But then, let's go back to Sentry's final
pyramid
post on the
scheme.
situation. Specifically their insane fent art, where buried beneath all the other wild text, she claims, "I incorrectly accused an artist of using AI, with a scathing, terrible draw-over of her Mitsuri art. The account closed shortly after. Not directly because of me, the account already announced they were closing when I went and made the post. I saw an empty page apart from the Mitsuri tweet and assumed it was a bot account." Now, sure, maybe you don't necessarily trust Sentry's word, but then we come to the final and most striking piece of evidence. According to this Twitter thread, Soyeon made her post announcing she'd be deleting her account a short while before Sentry created their now infamous call-out piece on her. Since the viral
Bruh.
repost includes both Soyeon's Mitsuri drawing
So it's
and a
literally just
screenshot of Century's
wrong
callout
place,
post,
wrong
we can
time.
see for a fact it went up 15 hours after Soyeon's drawing. And using archives of Soyeon's post announcing she'd be leaving her account, it's shown that was put up at 5 PM on January 9th, whilst the deletion announcement was made on 9 AM on the 10th. 13 hours later, or more importantly, 2 hours before Century's callout post. So yeah, this is such a big drama I'd heard repeated so many times. I was really shocked to find out it wasn't even true. I mean, it's understandable. The post outlining the timeline inconsistencies only has 5,000 views, while the repost saying Century caused her to delete her account has 8 million. I guess there's a broader lesson here about how easily misinformation can be spread online due to one especially popular post misrepresenting a narrative. I do feel like Century going on such an insane over-the-top apology tour and, from my perspective, reveling in the attention is a big reason why this whole thing blew up like it did, when they easily could have showed proof that their post went up after Soyeon's deletion announcement to settle their hate mob, instead of just giving it one
Nah, they
offhand
want the
mention
attention.
buried
Why
under
would
a
they
giant wall of
remove the
text that
hate
like
mob?
98% of people
If anything, what was it? The infamous phrase for everyone is, any attention is good attention. And it's like, no. Good attention is good attention. Bad attention is terrible attention. Get it right. It's never going to be bad as good and good as bad. It's always going to be worse from here on when you get bad attention for you, because a lot of people tend to stick with the negatives as opposed to the positives.
aren't even going to read.
Man, so it really is just straight up
Saying
accidental
that though, they
coincidence, or I
realistically
guess
still would have gotten a
circumstances.
similar amount of hate just for making the unwarranted call-out post anyway. This situation highlights yet another depressingly big effect AI is having on the art space online. In the previous part we went over Asami-chan, who managed to fool hundreds of thousands of people with her AI slop. And
Yeah, that one was a
sucks, but
surprise.
honestly, I think it's even more sad to see innocent artists have to deal with harassment after getting falsely accused like this. This is the most famous example, and it wasn't exactly as it was initially presented, but make no mistake, this is an annoyance a lot of genuine, talented artists have to deal with nowadays.
Oh yeah,
and it
I
only
wouldn't
gets
doubt
more
that.
cumbersome to disprove as AI scammers get more advanced, doing stuff like forging speed paints. Anyway, I obviously don't think Century the
Oh yeah, that one. Maybe he covered it in the previous video. I still can't believe that. Yeah, it was with the previous artist with the AI stuff. I still can't believe someone would go out of their way to have a green screen background to basically hide something they're tracing. To this day, that is like the craziest thing I've ever seen in like tracing and whatnot. Like the fact that they're using a green screen to hide it. That is nuts to me.
There's be getting hate over this anymore. And I especially don't think it's worth holding a grudge, since Soyeon actually ended up returning to posting art.
Oh.
Yep, on a new account set up just a few months after this whole debacle in July. She's back to
That's
making her
nice.
sick Demon Slayer fan art to the same core audience, so it's nice to see a happy ending for this one.
I guess it is a happy ending. The great Twitter debate. Okay.
Pokemon is just one of those franchises like Sonic or Deltarune that seems to really inspire artists. I swear the best artists in the world that hundreds of years ago would be doing commissions for like world nobles or something are now creating 16 Chapel equivalents, but it's of like Mr. Ant 10F from Deltarune. It's pretty awesome. I guess it shows how much of a cultural impact these series have thanks to social media, leading to people becoming so attached to and forming communities around them. Couple
Yeah,
that
I
with super
guess.
appealing characters that are simply fun to draw, either in wholesome or less than wholesome ways, and they always take a stranglehold on the art community, especially during the hype cycle of a new release coming out. So we rewind back to E3 of 2019, with the immense excitement around Pokemon's first mainline foray onto home consoles with the Nintendo Switch, and a new trailer for Sword and Shield being premiered, showing off its water gym leader, Nessa, who, as you can tell, would instantly become very popular with fan artists. Over the next few days, everyone's feed would be overrun with Nessa fan art, Basically everyone coming together to share their art, expressing their excitement for her. Many because she just looked cool, and many celebrating getting a black female major character in the franchise. However,
Uh, honestly, yeah, I can't think of a black female character beforehand. I know Brock somewhat, but everyone else, not so much.
amongst this, there are also some who took issue with how some artists decided to depict Nessa in their art, even if they had nothing but good intentions. First, the very popular Western artist Mary Redory posted this comic of Nessa meeting the game's protagonist, with it basically just being a
The
joke over
meme.
the trainer being
Oh
Scottish.
no, she's
It's a
Scottish.
reasonably amusing, cute comic, but that's not what the core of the discussion after it was released was. No, this kicked off a site-wide flame war over the idea that artists were allegedly whitewashing Nessa, with tons of comments and quote tweets complaining
That's,
about the perceived racist slight being committed against her. Looking at Mary's rendition next to the official art
Thanks, Microsoft Screen Recorder, for deleting half my recording. Why even use Microsoft Screen Recorder, my guy? Just use OBS. It is better,
of Nessa,
relatively
I think it's
speaking.
very obvious they did not purposely go out of their way to make her whiter, as some people would accuse her of. It's clearly just a color palette preference, with the comic being less saturated overall. I mean, if you look at the trim of her outfit in the official design, it's orange, but in this art, it's much closer to yellow. And the same is true
Yeah.
for all her design elements, not just her skin. Regardless, Mary would quickly put out an apology. I'm going to post a new version of the Nessa comic.
I really think people should stop making apologies for what is basically nothing. These are deranged people that are practically classified as clankers. They just need like the USB stick to basically connect them to the internet and they'll be there indefinitely. You should not apologize for these types of stuff. It's a stylistic choice as well, so it's like, why even apologize in the first place? These types of stuff shouldn't be something that should either concern you, much less affect you. It's like, straight up, why exactly even go out of your way to do these types of stuff in the first place? This is just delulu in the highest of orders of delulus. Well, because they just use less saturated colors. If it bothers you that much, go to Photoshop and use the and saturate it yourself if that's the
With a
biggest
much more
bother.
accurate Scottish dialect. I guess that was something people complained about as well. And with Nessa's skin being the same as in her original art, I honestly didn't intend for the skin tone to be different. It was a mistake. Please just everyone get along and have fun. Then releasing this edited version soon after. The overall response to this seemed to be somewhat split. Those that complained and caused the change were very thankful to be heard out, but the majority of responses very much seemed to be either confused how people could have a problem with the initial art, or
Yeah.
were outright upset at her bending the knee to SJWs, as they put it, arguing she was being bullied into
SJWs.
apologizing when she really did nothing wrong. Either
Yeah,
way, it was a
again,
largely
why
forgettable
exactly?
drama that would die off after the amended comic. And that's largely because, for those outside of Mary's fanbase, who only cared about the comic as part of some kind of culture war, they would quickly move on to another prominent artist for making the same mistake. This time it was the Japanese artist Najuko, who posted this very pretty fan art. But once again, the discussion underneath it would not relate to the art itself, but the color of Nessa's skin. This time the push
Seriously though, if anyone brings up the color of someone's skin, just automatically ignore them into oblivion. If that is the first thing you bring up as a criticism, no, just be gone, thought.
back was much more intense, as the Nessa whitewashing debates were completely taking over our Twitter for a while. I should note, obviously both these artists did not purposely try to make Nessa whiter, and there is really no charitable way to interpret them as being like straight up racist for these pieces. At the absolute worst, you could say they weren't being mindful of how it would be perceived and just picked whatever colors they thought looked best. Voices in support of Najiko pointed to how the images were clearly just drawn in a pastel style, naturally washing out the values of Nessa's skin along with everything else, pointing to their
Exactly.
previous artworks which also have this prominent washed out palette. But there were many critics who were far less charitable. Anytime an artist says it's not whitewashing, it's a color palette choice, they already lost. The fact that they thought choosing that particular color because it's pretty or fits best with their scheme is telling of internalized beliefs of how dark skin should be portrayed.
Yapatronicus 5000. The fact that you're trying to debate this means that you already lost. I'm not even debating with Twitter people of all things.
These kind of
These
posts
are little
themselves draw even
cockroaches.
more drama and debate. I will
It's like
say though, there are
squishing
people
1-2
critical
come
of
in
the
its
art
place.
that were clearly more constructive about the whole thing. Like this cool thread here, going over how to paint darker skinned characters without changing the value of their skin tone. And to some extent, the whole situation became an educational experience over how to accurately portray darker skinned characters in different art styles. Others were obviously much less constructive. On one extreme, we had those against Najiko's piece, like people deciding to completely steal and repost fixed versions of the artwork, showing
yes,
no remorse when she
our
asked them
favorite
not to do
types
that,
of degenerates.
and just generally being really obnoxious and mean to them over it. Whilst on the other side, people would play into the drama, purposefully drawing Nessa as white as they could, or just generally making edgy bait art, playing off the controversy. It kind of became a cringy Twitter war for a while,
You
until,
don't like vanilla.
well, there's always that one guy that takes things too far. On June 20th, Not Safe for Work artist Evil Art would post this. Hashtag Nessa, hashtag Pokemon. I know, the color isn't right. I will retouch later. Not Safe for Work version coming later. Attached to this drawing. Oh my god, bro. I mean, it should be pretty obvious regardless of where people felt in the argument over the previous drawings.
I mean, that's straight up pulling the freeze equivalent of monkeys. Honestly, that's straight up comedic genius right there. That is baller.
Everyone was pretty disgusted by this guy. What really gets me is how well drawn this is, like, technically. Evil Art clearly spent hours and hours crafting this, and it honestly just makes it even more sad. You can
Why?
think of this as like the grand finale.
This is just straight up comedy at its finest. Granted, I guess it could be rude, but still, that's the whole point of the joke.
Finale to the whole drama, as it was so insanely racist it totally overshadowed everything else in the public conscious, soaking up any of the controversy and discussion, but eventually after everyone got done clowning on him, the whole thing kind of died off. Since the end of this situation, Meriwether and Najiko have continued making their very pretty art and honing their skills without any other controversies. And although the Nessa debate died down, since then I feel like it's become a yearly tradition on our Twitter for there to be some mainstream whitewashing debate that feels like an exact copy-paste of this, which is why this is in the video even though it's not really just about one specific artist, but more of a site-wide thing. As for
Collective,
Evil
I
Art,
guess.
well, they just kept their head down and continued making their Guna art. I don't know, it's kind of screwed up, but on social media, whenever you do something especially reprehensible like this, it's rare to see any consequences. If anything, the notoriety just gains you huge levels of exposure and ends up making you more popular, as we've seen with
Yeah, I
other
guess.
artists in this series. Although, maybe it's not all bad, as coincidentally, as I was writing this video, he did find himself in another small drama. I guess he was working on this big Kickstarter project with a bunch of other lewd artists
Tarot
to make a
After
physical set of
Dark.
tarot cards featuring pinup art. It does look kinda cool, but Evil Art ended up getting publicly kicked from the project after the other artists were made aware of his Nessa drawing and shown links to his Discord, where he, surprise
Boo.
surprise, was being blatantly racist, and after being kicked by the lead, he allegedly replied, "Alright, I'll have to post about this scam then, and I'll have every member of my Discord and X report the project. About 60k on X and 5k on Discord. Pathetic piece of shit." With him sticking his fanbase on the team, confirming that yes, the guy who would make something like this is a huge loser in real life and online.
Oh, well, that just kind of undermines the whole joke. Total warfare.
Shipple Deppel began his online career primarily as a YouTuber in 2016. He'd gained reasonable levels of popularity, largely thanks to his animated fan works, like the Garfield series.
I'm hungry. Time to inhale lagna. Jonathan, belch me some lasagna immediately.
No guard delay. I'm busy.
Jonathan, you deprecious bimbo. This is why women don't talk to you. Now why don't you make yourself a huge
Yeah, I kinda remember these for some reason.
Scrumptious Las Vegas. You celebrate pansy.
Bunting, stop it. Garfield.
What's wrong, John?
He has that very Newgrounds style look to his art, which I always really appreciate. This series and other projects like his animated rendition of that insanely funny Carl the Brain Cell bit from Only Plays, easily pulling millions of eyes to his work.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey Jim, you want to join Antifa?" Hey, Jimmy, Jimmy, go to the Brain Cell subreddit. It'll really change. But it'll explain why Cindy doesn't love you. It's because you're a sub 8 male. You're a new male, Jimmy. You're a new male, Jimmy. Don't take the red pill. That's for cucks who go.
No, Jimmy, take the red pill. I love the red pill.
Is that's Sheen?
Yeah.
Chip using the notoriety from these animations to quickly gain a respectable following over on his Twitter he set up in 2019, which was home to a mix of art and just normal tweets showing off his distinctive style of humor. But he'd really grow his influence when in November of 2019, during the generational resurgence of Minecraft, Chipple Dipple came up with the idea for and became the effective co-owner of SMP Earth, along with Wilbur Soot. The SMP Earth server becoming an insanely popular hub for various big-time YouTubers and streamers to play and collaborate on, with the gimmick being it was a 1 to 3000 scale replica of the planet Earth. I don't know anything about Minecraft, but one thing I do know about these SMP communities is that they fostered a very particular kind of fan base.
I know for a fact that, what was it? I know it mainly from the stuff Technoblade did on it, and that's it. Everything else just kind of
Basically, this is where all the Dream Tommy Innit stan type of people would conjure before migrating to the Dream SMP, which really didn't mix well with Chipple Dipple's edgy, dank meme lord style persona. Not to mention how at odds his humor was with Twitter itself, especially the Twitter art community. And I'm not sure how remembered it is at this point, but back in the day, especially in the period after the great Tumblr exodus of 2019, and before Elon buying the site, Twitter was like the hub for the overly politically correct, hyper-progressive net. Basically like how Blue Sky is seen today. Not exactly the kind of community where the majority of people would be accommodating to someone who posts stuff like this. As when he wasn't doing SMP Earth stuff, which already occasionally saw some of his more provocative humor leak true, such as featuring Jeffrey Epstein's mention on the thumbnail for its trailer, he'd be getting up to straight shenanigans on his Twitter. To give some quick highlights, he'd make this viral Cal Arts vs Newgrounds artist template, poke fun at the Minecraft stan community for their "the Minecraft bee is trans" meme, and rather famously got attached to and spammed memes based off the Gassy General, a piece of fetish art of that guy from Johnny Test, with Chip apparently going as far as to pay the original artist for the copyright to the image and taking him as his own, like he was frickin' adoptable or something, christening the character Sergeant Brapog, and making him somewhat of a mascot for his account. You may remember Chip actually appeared in the previous part of this series during the section on John Bob. Yes, Chip was part of the huge Twitter artist community that formed around John, and after he got exposed when pretty much every other artist was making very serious posts disowning him, Chip would instead choose to post an ironic fan cam of John. Many users were mortified he dared to make a fan cam for a groomer, seeming to think it was glorifying John, despite it literally showing John's avatar getting his head blown smooth off. As you can tell, the guy had little to no filter and just liked to cause drama for the fun of it. To put in perspective how much these antics got Chip into controversy, as of 2020, Chip was blocked by over 10,000 different accounts. So needless to say, at this point, the guy was seen as like a supervillain in certain spaces of Twitter. With a hatedom,
I mean, 10,000 people is not a small amount at all.
Becoming so controversial, he was eventually excommunicated from the SMP Earth team he himself helped create. Perhaps the oddest irreverent drama Chip found himself in was when, to simplify the situation somewhat, after getting into an argument in a public Discord server with someone, Chip sent an image of someone holding crap in their hand to them, along with the caption, "It's my poop." In reality, this was not actually an image of Chip he had taken of himself holding his own poop, just an image he had found online. But people spread around the story that this was actually his, and things got way worse when it was found out the person he sent it to was weeks away from turning 18, making the narrative Chipple Dipple is a creep who sent his poop to a minor. Personally, I mean, I find this pretty cringe, but it's obviously not predatory, and that seemed to be the
Yeah, it's
opinion
just
of most
like
people outside
trying
of
to
the
be
Chip
edgy for the
antics.
sake of
Now, we finally get to the most
humor,
explosive
trolling.
and infamous of Chip's controversies, and the thing he really is most remembered for today. In 2023, Chip would post the seemingly innocuous, purposefully incomprehensible meme. An argument between these six would be priceless, showing Psychopebbles, Randy March, and Animator 320. But the one
Okay.
that's relevant to us is this chunky dino character right here. It's the persona of the artist Pipka. Presumably due to his toxic reputation, Pipka will respond, "Can you not use me for clout? I don't want anything to do with you. Thanks." Inadvertently kicking off a bona fide Twitter Cold War between the two. Basically, Pipka's fans would hate on Chip for being problematic, pointing to the sending poop to a minor allegations and his purposely rage-baited tweets, while Chip's fans would respond in turn by mercilessly mocking Pipka, fixating on the girty character design of her Sona, with Chip and his fanbase
Just because she
making various
decided to
mocking
be
edits,
thick
depicting her OC as being
3 C's.
gassy and making fun of it for being a fat fetish character. A user would respond to one of these posts saying, "Can you all stop hating on Pipka for being trans and body positive? Thank you." To which Chip would reply with a clip from a fully playable platformer he was making, entitled Pipka's Gassy Adventure, featuring Pipka running around eating McDonald's fries, which made her fat as she belches and farts. Okay, dude. This game in
and he
particular
put
causing
effort to
Pipka
make a
great
game
distress,
about that.
as she really had not personally attacked Chip or anything at this point in the story, and it caused her to announce she was quitting Twitter due to harassment from his fans.
Yeah, that's to be expected.
Obviously, like usual with these stories, she
Sorry about that. Some major inconveniences. Mainly concerning cake. Sweets. Should probably get myself cake later on. But let's go over these degenerates before we.
be back
Oh,
the very
we're
same
actually
day,
near the end. Somewhat.
and
If it could stop stuttering, please. Thank you.
it caused her to announce she was quitting Twitter due to harassment from his fans. Obviously, like usual with these stories, she'd be back the very same day, and the drama would continue on to strange new heights.
Oh,
Throughout all this, Pipka maintained she did not have, nor was her character made to serve any kind of fat fetish. Her and her fanbase claiming Chip and his fans spreading that narrative was fat shaming and harassment. Although this is simply not true, as she would later accuse Chip of being the one behind distributing a Pipka not safe for work Google Drive folder, which we'll get into more soon, but as for what was in that folder, it was blatant fat fetish art Pipka had made of her character. All the while, Chip continued working on the game and made this very funny image summarizing his thoughts on the whole drama, which you may have seen before since it spread as a somewhat popular meme template in of itself. At this point in the story, I'd say you could argue Chip was being a bit mean to this Pipka person for no real reason beyond their character being kind of funny looking. But the real people doing bad stuff in this situation were definitely the two's fan bases. Chip's fans were absolutely going unreasonably hard against Pipka, whilst Pipka's own fans were actively reporting Chip's accounts, spreading false allegations, and worst of all, attempting to dox Chip, with them eventually obtaining and calling his mother's phone number, attempting to get him kicked out of the house.
Why always
So
go
I
for
can
that?
definitely see the argument for Pipka also being deserving of criticism for not dissuading her fanbase just as much as Chip would be. And it was at the height of this Twitter war, Chip would post a link to what appeared to be a teaser for the Pipka's Gassy Adventure game on a website named pipka.party, only for Chip to then begin posting on Twitter, freaking out about how he'd apparently made a mistake setting up the site, leaving all his personal details visible in its source code, including his phone number, home address, full name, everything, effectively doxing himself. And he would say he was unable to take it down for some reason, begging people to not post him online. To which Pipka's fans obviously ignored, and instead would gleefully celebrate and spread his dox all over Twitter. But then, in a shocking twist, Chip updated the site the next day, revealing the whole thing was a stunt. Chip making the fake docs to expose Pipka's fans for realistically being just as bad as his own toxic fanbase, happily spreading someone's docs for the crime of making fun of their e-celeb. And Chip would then use all the voicemails sent to the burner phone in the Pipka Gassy Adventure game. This is the point where Pipka accuses Chip of owning and spreading the Pipka NSFW art archive, with Pipka going as far as to claim she was going to report this to the FBI, claiming it constituted cyberstalking. That being in spite of the fact the images were from a previous public not safe for work account she ran. Along with this, all the previous allegations against Chip are also being spread by Pipka and her fanbase, such as the sending poop to a minor allegation, and, much more seriously, him getting wrapped up in a unrelated case of alleged revenge porn, where someone claiming to be defending Chip's honor, but would later admit to not even liking him, would harass an account who was criticizing Chip over the John Bob fancam video, by sending them previously leaked, private, sexual images of themselves. This, whether maliciously spread by detractors, or simply through a game of telephone, becoming an allegation of Chip himself spreading the images. I will put the full details on screen if you want, but the crux of the matter is that it was becoming an undeniable trend that those against Chip were spreading increasingly unwarranted and harmful rumors about him over this incredibly petty internet drama. And at this point, everything was really getting out of hand.
Nonsense.
So Chip would put all these baseless accusations to bed in a Google document he produced entitled The Pipka Files. It is very funny how high effort this is for the most terminally online drama of this whole series. But as for its contents, it manages to very clearly and definitively disprove the major allegations we went over here. Near the end, in a section entitled Who is Harassing Who, he mentions the doxing incidents and argues it reveals Pipka and her fanbase did far worse than anything he or his fans did. Throughout this document, I've had to defend myself from claims of pedophilia and revenge pornography while being falsely accused of criminal acts. I'm also hated for stalking and harassment. This is in spite of people contacting my parents in an attempt to ruin my life. This is all a completely rational response to ribbing on someone's fat fetish. It's okay to act completely identical to Kiwi Farms if it's for Pipka. 2 days ago, I created a website called Pipka Party and pretended to accidentally leak my personal info. This wasn't just for voice lines, but to see what they would do if it was available. People started celebrating, sharing the leak, and encouraging others to use it. Yet somehow it's an indictment of my character when people celebrate I got doxed.
Given the fact that people would celebrate literally a normal person for having a certain, standing in like public or something like that, and they basically get executed in public and they'd celebrate that. Yes, Twitter is one step away from entering hell. It's basically the in-between limbo and the first circle of hell. The website is atrocious. And people want to use that for communication and spreading their, influence? Yeah. Honestly, with how exactly things are going, I'd prefer to be a small content creator as opposed to one who uses Twitter and be a big content creator. I don't know. Then again, I could always just ignore it, but knowing how everyone works on the internet, I can only ignore it for so long.
More than they did for a groomer. And with how irreverent and trollish he acts, it is interesting how he ends it, finally speaking candidly about why he did all this stuff making fun of Pipka's character. Everything about the game has been lighthearted because that's all it ever was. It's fart jokes, potty humor, and videos of Nikado Avocado dancing.
I mean, again, this is like cringy, edgy joke humor. It's not even like that harmful or anything. It's just old school humor, underage humor for the sake of just having a blast, I guess. Which is like, how exactly is that bad in all
Here to
cases?
make a game about an E-Celeb you find funny? Yes. Is it a complete waste of time? Without a doubt. But is it harassment? No, not at all, whatsoever. I never condone any of what has happened to me if it happened to her, because that's not in the Brapog's code. After the Pipcast files released, it swayed the majority of public opinion on Chip, with many who spread the allegations about him posting apologies. Pipka, though, was still not convinced when it came to the justification for making fun of her character and fetish, saying everything in that respect just seems to be deflection to justify it as irony again, which doesn't and hasn't worked. She would then really go off on Chip for using what were apparently private Discord messages of her discussing the fat fetish stuff to support his
Sith
defenses,
spit.
claiming it was obsessive and abusive behavior, saying, like, this is not some kind of random Twitter fight, he is genuinely scraping info from me when I was barely an adult and using it to degrade me in order to justify his ongoing harassment. On top of that, someone on the Chip side would manage to mass report and get Pipka's Twitter deactivated, and then, in retaliation, her fanbase will continue to pursue, eventually managing to obtain his actual, real docs, which would then, unsurprisingly, be used to further attack him and apparently harass his family, who, I mean, obviously did not deserve to be getting dragged into this complete mess of a drama. With this driving Chip to willingly deactivate his own account and leave Twitter. With the fall of the main accounts of each of the two generals from each side, the destructive war of Pipka and Chip was finally drawn to a close. In the coming months, both of them will return to Twitter, for the most part moving on from this whole situation and simply resumed business like usual. Chip still posting occasional art and his usual off-kilter tweets. Although now they're pretty much the status quo for Twitter, so they don't really bring the same kind of controversy they used to. And he still seemingly holds quite a supportive cult following. Whereas Pipka, from what I can tell, has no other big controversies besides this one, and just posts her normal, wholesome fan art to her own dedicated fanbase.
Sure.
In the end, I don't know what to think of this whole drama. I do think
Basically
at
the
points
Cold
Chip's
War.
posts poking fun at Pipka's character
Just
are
on
pretty
a smaller
funny,
scale.
although I could see the argument it's a bit mean and unwarranted. At least at the beginning, since I also personally find it very hard to frame Pipka as some kind of victim in the story, given how she herself overreacted so much and did nothing to discourage the frankly heinous shit her fanbase did to Chip in her name, whereas Chip very much did denounce anyone who took things beyond just making fun of her character. Frankly, since both have avoided any major controversy since this went down, I suppose you could say it was a learning experience for them both to not be so irresponsible with their fan bases.
I guess
Since if
you
you
can
don't do
kinda say
enough
it
to
like that.
discourage it, there are always going to be people who will take things too far. And although I don't think it's fair to blame creators for what their fans do entirely, I do believe if things get this out of hand, you should at the very least attempt to reel things back in instead of continually doubling down.
True. Space Dev won the beautiful art community. Here we go. Something
Meet Space Dev.
wholesome.
This guy actually started out on Reddit. I did not know there were specifically Reddit artists out there, but
Oh, yeah, they
apparently
are.
so. Going through his profile, you can see he's very new to art, with his first piece being as recent as October of 2025. It's actually a pretty cool pencil drawing of Susie Deltarune fighting the knight. I actually think including the knight's phantom swords is pretty neat. The composition and poses are cool too, and there's a tangible spontaneity to the whole thing. It just oozes pure soul. If there's one thing that jumps out about Space Dad's art, it's that he's very ambitious, not afraid to take on more challenging concepts that
Good on
even
him.
experienced artists tend to shy away from. I mean, bro's got a whole background with like the dark fountain and stuff. My lazy ass isn't going to be drawing backgrounds like 98% of the time. On his later
likewise.
posts, we can see he mostly stuck to doing Deltarune fan art for a while, and you can see him slowly move into digital art, where he then shifts his focus to fan art of the anime Frieren. His first piece of Fern does pretty well over on r/Frieren, pulling in 2,000 likes, which is not bad, but seems downright minuscule when 1 week later he posts this. Frieren, I practiced drawing faces in a different angle, but it looks kinda weird, lol. Attached to this famous drawing.
The infamous
This
meme.
post sitting today at a crazy 60,000 updates and over 1,000 comments. The piece itself is very cute. Like, it looks broken and stuff, and obviously isn't quite anatomically correct.
Yes.
But there's something inexplicably appealing about it. Maybe how human it comes off.
I
If
mean,
you're not an
it's
artist, you're
charming in the sense of like you have like what was it? That old drawing of Sasuke. What was it? Sasuke. Literally just his head being so big and odd and whatnot. It's charming in that type of way. Inexperienced but honest and like sooner or later he's gonna improve. By the way, that guy from that made the original Sasuke art has gotten significantly better. But it's pretty much like a nice, interesting detail to show like things will be worse before they get better. And it's kind of charming in that sense, you know? Old school art being like inexperienced, very simple, somewhat wonky. And then later on they improve drastically and it's so different from when they started and how they're going. It's nice to have that like perspective. It's cool, all things considered. It's one of the
So
reasons
it just
why we
looks
like
funny,
these types of
but
stuff.
if you are, I think it's heavily enhanced by how relatable the experience of trying to draw at crazy angles like this is, especially as a beginner. I think it's common for artists to fall into a place of comfort and only draw characters at more normal angles, I guess. So when you're starting out, you have this unabashed drive to just go for anything. And
Yeah,
there's a certain
I
charm
guess.
to that this piece really brings to light. And it's somewhat admirable to have the bravery to put it out to the world like this, when most people would be worried they get roasted in the comments. So then, how
Most
was the
people.
reaction to this? Well, surprisingly, the majority of comments were very positive. A lot of people memeing about how funny it looks in a lighthearted way, others sharing support for a beginner artist. It was especially cool to see people sharing resources and guides on how to draw the infamously difficult angle.
Okay,
It's
that's
worth
kinda
noting
cool.
though, although now Space Dev gets to enjoy the fame from accidentally creating such an all-timer art meme, at first the post was not nearly as popular as it is today, and was actually being far outperformed by various reposts on other subreddits, which went out of their way to act like they were the ones who made it by not crediting Space Dev. One of these posts in particular on r/animation garnering 35,000 upvotes in one day, far outperforming the original at that point in time. But thankfully it was quickly amended and taken down, with it instead linking to Space Dev's genuine original post. So with all this
Thank-
new notoriety,
thank the
Space
Lord
Dev
for
decided
that.
to start putting his art up on Twitter 3 days after the famed Freeone drawing, with his introductory tweet garnering a crazy 115,000 likes. At this point, the image
Nice.
had completely breached containment from Reddit and garnered a complete and total stranglehold over on art Twitter. So scrolling down to the comments in Space Dev's post, you can see literally hundreds of artists showing off redraws of the piece he had inspired. And it was cool just in general to see how much of an event this innocuous beginner's drawing ended up being for the art community as a whole. I mean, just look at how many of these there are and how awesome so many of them look.
The pog
Even
face
Kylie
on the
made
bottom
one.
left
Apparently
one.
this art
Ah,
professor
that's
used
low
it to
blow.
teach his students about perspective. Pretty much every art-based YouTuber made tutorials around it, or just talked about the event in general. And probably the most insane inspired piece I saw was this fully animated version by OtaKing77077. The whole movement even became big enough to break out of the art community and just became a big meme in general.
And there it
So
is. Strongest anime art in history. Strongest anime art of the day.
much so, the actual English voice actor of Freeone herself, Mallory Rodak, set Space Dev's original image as her profile picture. So then on the 17th of November, Space Dev made an official statement thanking people for all the positive attention and how flattered he was by the huge movement he'd unintentionally inspired. This post getting an insane 260,000 likes, showing just how much support and appreciation he was gaining. So my drawing blew up. It's even became a meme. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sending me countless tips on how to draw faces/perspective. I'm happy that it inspired a lot of you to draw this apparently hard angle. I'm glad that you challenged yourself to do better than I did. I'm absolutely flattered this drawing became Mallory Rodak's profile picture. I just shared it because it looks silly, but oh my god, the publicity, the tips, I didn't even know that drawing would touch so many people's soul.
Sometimes you strike gold.
I wanted to end this series with something to show the positivity and power the wider art community holds, because it's fun to talk about the controversies and how ridiculous and petty a lot of the drama from this space can be.
Oh
But
yeah.
at the same time, there is a reason so many people call it home. To me, that's because in an era where the internet can be very divided, and especially with stuff like the rise of AI, Human expression and connection through art is truly special and valuable. The community has the potential to, and more often than not does, support each other's artistic journeys, whether it's through constructive criticism or just letting someone know that their work connected with you. I think it really means a lot to the people pouring their hearts
Thumbs up.
into making it, and goes a long way in giving them the drive to continue creating and improving. So this is the end of the infamous Twitter artist series, at least for a while. I have grown to really love this whole multiple stories in one video format, so I'll definitely make similar videos on different communities in the future. So subscribe if you want to see those, and another similarly big series coming very soon. No spoilers. I feel
This
like we
should be
ended up covering
interesting.
all the big stories, smaller ones only I really care about, and every genre
horror
of art Twitter drama there
controversies.
is, so I'm pretty happy with how everything came out. Whether you stuck around for the whole thing, or only watched this part, thank you very much for watching.
You're very welcome. Looking forward to more stuff you make, my guy.
Alright,
And I thank you for also sticking with me for these 3 parts. Check out the other previous parts if you're a bit lost, but I think we overall got the gist of it. Twitter art overall can be very wholesome, can be very divided, can be AI, and can be filled with gooder degenerates and clanker lovers. It's a really messy but somewhat beautiful place that I will never go visit. Unless I get bigger viewers, I guess. Yeah.